Happy Friday, plug and play SM rock stars. Today's video is going to be going over the new 2024 Gen Z homebuyer report from Kristen Meserly. So this is a report that I review every single year. I also look at the NAR data, which that data always comes out at the very end of March to reflect on last year's data, which I have a feeling will be very similar to 2022. But some of you ask, what's an example of a one-to-many email that, according to the battle plan and even on the monthly calendar, it shows every Friday is our day where we send a mass email as a value add to our real estate partners. And some of you had asked, what would be some ideas that you could include in this type of email? Because sometimes it's hard to think of what's relevant. What is it something that they would need? How do we know if it's actually providing value? And it's only valuable if they say it is. So usually these are emails that I recommend you draft or start brainstorming on Mondays. That way it stays fresh and relevant. In fact, some of you ask, is there any way to see the content a month in advance? And no, we're sometimes only a week in advance because of the market and how crazy it's been the last couple of years. It really would be irresponsible for us to just assume we could create only evergreen content that isn't driven by the market needs or demands. So that's why we're always studying the content pillars. What sub pillars should we have based off how many of the sub pillars are more broad versus a little bit more narrow and more niche specific, as well as using the hashtag holiday calendar. So make sure you guys are leveraging these calendars to help create additional content. Remember, this is the offensive side of the strategy. And I know some of you have told me, Deb, I am not doing anything above and beyond what you guys are doing. You are okay with it only being the defensive side of the strategy, which I always say is the things that we can control. We can control the consistency, make sure the posts are going out. This is partly why we can't guarantee results. We can only guarantee and control what we create because all of you are different. And some have asked, is there an ROI that you can tell us by the end of 6 months or 12 months? And it's no, because it really depends on a lot of different things. It's almost like asking when a client asks, what's your rate? And there's 32 different variables that go into that. It's very similar and true with social because a lot of the factors or signals, so to speak, is dependent on the type of accounts that you're following and what's the activity that those people that you're following are doing online, as well as those who are following you and what's their activity with what they do online, which is why, and some of you, we've had to have these conversations that I get it. You may have used a different company and they were buying likes or buying followers or comments. And the danger in that is it really screws up your analytics and it doesn't give proper signals to the algorithms when they go out to hunt for you. There's not a consistency usually in the audience that's following you when that happens. So I just taught a class actually this week and an agent was like, I really want to go viral. And I was like, what does going viral do? And is it possible that too many are trying so hard to go viral, focused on the result where you may go viral for the wrong reason? Maybe it's, and I use this analogy all the time, but I could post a half naked picture on social and get 100,000 views. Are those the right kind of views from the right kind of accounts that I really want to attract? Most likely a bunch of accounts maybe in India. Males, no, that would not be targeting the right kind of audience. And so sometimes people get so fixated on not being true to who they are because they're trying to be controversial or they're saying things to just ruffle feathers for engagement. And this is where I say sometimes less is more. The ultimate goal is to stay as true and authentic to you without feeling like you're performing, because you're not performing. It's like a never-ending conversation where the goal is to pique curiosity, to create pattern interrupts or perspective changes around when someone is scrolling to get them to think, because it's possible they may not have thought of something in the angle that you're sharing. For instance, the video post I had suggested that you guys do about how the 3% interest rate could be hurting American families and having real examples of that exact scenario with households with higher interest debt that left on their own, they probably wouldn't be able to get out from under. So it was in their best interest to do a cash out refinance, take the higher rate, pay off all the other higher interest debt. And now their household cumulative rate is a lot lower and they have more dollars working for them. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of putting the squeeze on some of you that if you're starting to see results or if you're not starting to see results, another thing to note is this is an election year. It's typically when I would say to double down on content because there are a lot of people who get off social or they reduce their amount of screen time because of the election year and some of the negativity that can come with that. So don't be surprised. It's kind of like the month of December when I shared with all of you that usually the month of December, the views and the reach is a little bit lower because more people are choosing to stay off their phone and be more present with family, which is a good thing. But that means when people are online and if they're spending less time online, then you'll be more memorable. And some will quit. They'll get out of posting because they'll think it's just not working. And it's not always true. If you guys didn't see my Valentine's Day post, y'all make sure you check it out. It was relating, it was a quote I had said earlier in the week from presenting where I was comparing the unmeasurables. Like love is there's not a standard unit of measurement for love. Like there's no way to know how much someone loves you or how much you love them for that matter, because there's not, a unit of measurement. And so the same is true with branding. And I know we've talked about this before, but there's a difference between branding, marketing, and advertising. And a lot of what we're doing is more branding since we're not doing the paid ads, obviously. And sometimes we'll do the call to actions or it may feel a little promotional, but we're really trying to establish and accelerate trust online, since we know that that's the new building for your storefront is people aren't going to drive to your office to see if you're there with the lights on and look at your hours and then stop in and have a meeting with you. They're most likely going to go to social and they're going to creep on you. So how do we accelerate trust? How do we increase our conversion by being intentional with what we're posting that gives someone the security and the safety and the confidence to be like, right, this is my person. And that moment of influence causes them to reach out to you. So just wanted to put a little exclamation point around that part. This week, your database calls are going to be anyone in your database with the last name that starts with the letter H. Remember, every Monday is our day to add to our social data bank from anyone from the week prior. So any lead, any listing agent you called from an offer submission, any listing agent on a contract you got, maybe you're looking at, CPAs on tax returns, divorce attorneys on divorce decrees. Remember, we're treating our social like a CRM. So we've got to create the habit and intentionality around when do we add these people to our social data bank. And so Mondays are always those days, and it's in the battle plan. That's your placeholder so you don't forget, as well as the first Mondays of every month. That is your time to review or kind of audit your favorites feed on Facebook and Instagram. It's okay to demote some that maybe you had on your favorites feed and then add people of maybe new introductions that you've gotten that you want to show up on their notification bubble. Another reminder about that. And then I want to dive into this report because I really think this Gen Z kind of next gen homebuyers report would be a great thing that you could send to your referral partners. I posted a graphic on Plug and Play SM. If you look in our private Facebook group, and it shows, I want to say it's almost 7 million first-time home buyers that are coming into the market over the next 5 years. So what are we doing today to nurture and to prepare for when that moment comes? Because what we don't want is to be reactive in that state. So let me dive in. I'm going to share my screen. So this is what the report looks like, and I'll make sure to link it in the email and in the notes here. She does have Google Slides, so if you want these as slides, this could be a great topic for your next real estate agent mastermind. Remember, those are always the first Wednesday. It doesn't have to be the first Wednesday, whatever day you choose, but the goal is to be doing at least a one-to-many agent class once a month. And you'll see that also on the 30,000 foot above you calendar, where the stretch goal would be every month you're doing an agent class and every month you're doing a client, like past client database educational class. So this kind of goes into a little bit about the report, like how many surveys were taken. It was over last year, so 2023's data. Here are some of the key insights. 39% said lack of knowledge was a current barrier to buying a home. Like this just fires me up right here because this number is way too high. And guys, social media is the largest digital classroom where people actually pay attention and learn. You could go to the classrooms, and I used to be a teacher in the classroom, and sometimes kids feel forced to learn things that they don't always want to learn, or maybe they don't have the full appreciation of what they're learning because they don't know how it'll impact them later. But 39%, a lack of knowledge. It also says nearly 1 in 3, so 30% Gen Z homebuyers said they were not confident in their ability to care for or maintain their home, a concern that is significantly higher than millennials. So what are we preparing to help families or to help potential new home buyers with feeling more confident about their ability to care for a new home? That may be having a home warranty, but that's also why you could say, and I know you guys see this every month, we try to include a home maintenance checklist for the month, and it may seem insignificant, but there's a huge amount. I'm sure you guys all saw that report of single women owning more homes than men. And I can tell you myself, like there's things that happen. I won't even mention this house, but I don't know how to fix it or repair. And it can become an overwhelming roadblock in our head that may not need to be so big. So how do we make that monster smaller? Gen Z feels less supported than millennials to reach their financial goals, with only 14% reporting that they have the financial advice and support they need in comparison with 26% millennials. So this goes into more. This was surveyed from October 2022 with 1,000 United States adults between the ages 18 and 44. Let's get into some of the actual stats, because there's a slide in here regarding social media. Okay, so this is interesting. It says social responsibility. Gen Z consumers prioritize companies and financial products that align with their values and social causes. You better believe that that is very, very, very important with Gen Z. Like they will overspend on things if it aligns with their greater purpose. So that's why when you look at the battle plan, as well as the 30,000 foot above you calendar, you'll see on Tuesdays are the prove it days, where you're proving that you are who you say you are and that you'll do what you say you'll do. And this is really important. This is something that we can't do for you. And I want you to really think of, how do you show up where you appear trustworthy? And it may be a screenshot from an agent or a client who's raving about your communication or how easy it was to understand the information that you delivered. But you'll see there's placeholders here where, yes, I alternate between mortgage strategies because I do feel like that's what makes you different than the average loan officer. Like when you can show people cost over time. I know not all of you use Mortgage Coach or TCAs. So I also have in here placeholders for you to think of. And we've gone through this exercise before where I've asked you, what are those like top 3 things that when you're meeting with a client or an agent, what are those things that you typically say of why you and why you matter? And then I've told you nowadays talk is cheap. So we have to prove that to be true. This is where you do that. So when you see brand value number 1, brand value number 2, brand value number 3, this is you looking for evidence from the last couple of weeks of, how do I prove that I care? How do I prove that I lead with education? How do I prove that I am proactive with communication? How do I prove that I help you manage this debt beyond just the closing? Those are the things that I want you to become super aware of and make sure that you're looking for that evidence. Okay, so when we're looking at how do we create content that is going to resonate with the needs of, say, Gen Z buyers, we know 39% said a lack of knowledge or understanding of the home buying process, but also 27% said limited personal financial knowledge was a top challenge to their situation. So that's why you'll see sometimes we throw in financial literacy type post, or Fridays we'll ask certain questions to test like first home IQ knowledge. This is why we sometimes throw in the financial literacy component. And it may not make a whole lot of sense because you're thinking, we do mortgages, but it's bigger. It's under the finance umbrella, and it's a broader content pillar where it's going to get a little bit more reach because we have more people typically interested in learning about financial literacy than just mortgage itself. So promise there's always a method to the madness behind our content strategy. Okay, I thought this slide was interesting. It says Gen Z less trusting of housing professionals than millennials. This one really surprised me. I thought millennials would be less, because depending on the age range of the millennial, they were the children when the housing crash occurred. So from their lens as a child, if they went through bankruptcy or foreclosure, that could be why they're not super trusting of real estate agents or financial professionals, meaning loan officers. But for Gen Z to be even less trusting could be because they were raised with an iPad in their hand. And so therefore they've always been marketed to. Like they are so immune to ads at this point. Okay, this is the main slide that I wanted to go over for our coaching session for today. Social media as a trusted educational resource. Gen Z, current homebuyers, and recent homeowners in 2022, so starting from October, this study showed which of the accounts do they trust for their education. And so Instagram was number one, not a surprise, although the hardest to grow on right now is Instagram. And YouTube is number two. I talk about Instagram a lot. And I know that's a lot of you, that's your main poison, so to speak, between that or Facebook. And what I wanted to go deeper on is why YouTube should be a primary focus for you for the rest of this year. In fact, I want it to be a goal that by the end of Q1, you have your YouTube channel up. And if you need help getting it set up, just let us know. We have a link that you can sign up and we will help you create a channel that's optimized and set up properly. But we need to at least start there. And you do need a Gmail account for you to be able to create a YouTube channel. But can you guys make the commitment to me that everyone listening and all plug and play SM Rockstar clients, will you please create by the end of Q1, so we have a little over a month, a YouTube channel? And I'm going to go through of how to set it up, how to create the longer form content, where you should focus your time, energy, and efforts, because the data consistently shows YouTube is always number two across all channels. And I would argue that, and I know this is in the report later on, that where millennials and Gen Zs go to learn the most about home buying is YouTube. So they may trust Instagram the most because that could be what they're on majority of the time. But when they're actively looking to learn, they're going to YouTube. And that's also what I love about YouTube is the motive for people when they go to that channel is to stay a little bit longer. And so how do we create the educational content for all the different client segments that we have? That's what we're going to work on for Q2. So y'all have a great weekend. Remember, President's Day is Monday. I don't know how many of you are working or not, but I want to see more of your content being posted in between our post. Okay, got it? All right, y'all take care.